outside of touring. Interviews and public appearances became fewer and further between. And for a while, it appeared that they were almost becoming recluse.
It was necessary. Moving pictures became a very big record. And we felt the need to protect ourselves because we were getting a lot of distractions, and a lot of things were coming into our view that we didn't seem very important, that we didn't think were very important, and they were distracting us from what our priorities are, which is playing well and you know, basically being happy and enjoying what we do. Our lives were getting very confused, and there was photographers around and this and that and the other, and it just didn't feel right. You know, we felt in a wrong situation, and we felt it was endangering our existence as a band. So we had to, you know, get a little more insular, which is dangerous because you cut yourself off from life when you do that. You cut yourself off from the street, and you cut yourself off from experiencing other things. And we had, you know, I guess it was like a midlife crisis, you know, that I guess that everyone sort of goes through, but it's unusual to think that a band could go through that, but we've been together for so long, that's really what it was. There were things that we wanted to do, and we wanted to find out that we'd never done. We figured if we don't do it now, we may regret it. So.
One of the things they did was to work with a different producer on their latest album, Grace Under Pressure. Peter Henderson, who has also produced Supertramp, was at the helm of this one. I suggested to Geddy that there has been a real progression in their lyrics, from the mythology and fantasy of their earlier albums.
I don't think we ever viewed it as being as spacey as everybody else viewed it, first of all, because we were a very internal band at that point, you know. We were all growing up. We were all going through things. We were dealing with success. We were dealing with travel. And we were finding ourselves, basically, I think. And when you're going through that kind of period, your view is very tunnel vision. All you're really concerned about is finding yourself and how you feel about this and how you feel about that, which is why, you know, some of the topics were very much individualism and, you know, all according to that kind of psychology. But as you grow older, you become happier with yourself, more confident in your abilities, and we became more confident in our abilities as a band, and it wasn't such a desperate search for ourselves. We sort of found ourselves and felt comfortable with ourselves. So then your sights sort of turn on what you see around you, and that's why now, even more than ever, what we experience sort of reflects, you know, sort of comes out in our music. So it's basically growing, you know.
The music has changed quite dramatically in the last 4 albums. How much has your personal life changed?
I think in the last few years my life's been getting simpler. I've been directioning it in a very simpler, a more simple way, trying to streamline my lifestyle and my needs so I can keep my focus on important things. You know, my family's important to me, and my work is very important to me, and baseball is very important to me. So I try to make time for all those things and not worry so much about, you know, having a lot of cars or having a lot of this or a lot of that. It became too confusing. It clouded the issue, and it clouded my life. So I've made a very concerted effort to simplify that.
It seems funny, though. You say that you have to, you like the freedom it buys you, but the more successful you become, the less freedom you have.
In a lot of ways, the less freedom I have to walk down the street, but that, too, is an attitude. You know, I used to really be offended by my invasion of privacy, and I still am to a degree, but, you know, I picked this line of work, and I have to accept that that's what comes along with it.
It seems to me that you have really come to grips with the paranoia that's usually associated with celebrity.
Coming to grips, I don't, you know, it still happens because I really don't like to be bothered at home, and I am very paranoid about being bothered at home and about people, you know, coming to my house, because at one time I had a house in Toronto, and it became a nightmare, you know, with people yelling in my windows and looking in my windows, and so I am still paranoid about those kind of things, because that kind of life is very offensive to me. But becoming less paranoid and trying to just forget about it, really.
The band has been together 14, almost 15 years now. What's kept you together?
I think there's 2 things. We are good friends, and we like what we do. And those 2 things seem to be enough. You know, we all enjoy working together a lot, and we like playing, and it keeps us adolescent in a lot of ways. You know, in a world that seems to be becoming more and more serious all the time, when we get together and rehearse and start goofing off, it's very adolescent, and I think it's a real strong reason to keep it together, I think.
Do you think about the future much? Certainly, you've probably made enough money that you won't have to work, but I'm sure that you will keep working.
I have options. I'd like to stay in music. I like to produce. I like working with other people a lot. Working with one band for, you know, as many years as I have has left a bit of frustration and a real desire to work with other people. So there's a lot of projects I would like to do. I'm very interested in film still, and I've had, you know, starting to work with videos. It's starting to really appeal to me, although I find it a little frustrating having to stick to a song as a script. I'd rather make feature films, but haven't got a clue how to do that yet. And I like baseball an awful lot, so it takes up a lot of my time, too.
You could invest in a baseball team.
You never know.
Space of 1 year. Up on the heavy metal rock market. Their last album, Permanent Wave, sold a record 1.3 million copies. And
our lives were getting very confused, and there was photographers around, and this and that and the other, and it just didn't feel right. You know, we felt in a wrong situation, and we felt it was endangering our existence as a band. So we had to, you know, get a little more insular, which is dangerous because you cut yourself off from life when you do that. You cut yourself off from the street, and you cut yourself off from experiencing other things. I like being from Canada. I like living in Canada. Of all the cities I've been to, Toronto is, I think, one of the finest to live in, and I'll always feel that way. I grew up in this band. I look at being in a band different than a lot of musicians do, because a lot of musicians become musicians, go play around, and then join a band. You know, I joined a band and grew up in it. We are good friends, and we like what we do, and those two things seem to be enough.
A certain amount of influence with an audience to write about social issues and kind of open their eyes to it.
No, I don't think that. I mean, that's a very fine topic of discussion, social responsibility. I mean, it's very hard to understand that, let alone discuss it. I don't even know if I can analyze that subject well enough to even discuss, but we feel our music is personal expression first, and we express what we're thinking, what we're talking, and we hope that we communicate at the same time. We're not trying to write just for ourselves, because it would be naive of me to say that. It would be wrong to say that, because music is communication, and we are trying to talk to people, but I guess we're just trying to first express what we feel, what we think in an honest way, and secondly, to communicate those feelings to others. It was a lot of fun. We're thinking what we're talking, and we hope that we communicate at the same time. We're not trying to write just for ourselves, because it would be naive of me to say that. It would be wrong to say that, because music is communication, and we are trying to talk to people, but I guess we're just trying to first express what we feel, what we think in an honest way, and secondly, to communicate those feelings to others. You know, when you first get successful, your world becomes very materialistic, because all of a sudden you have things at your fingertips that you've never been able to have, and it's like a kid in a candy store. You want all the candy you can get. But after a while you realize that that's really not what life is all about, and it's a phase, and it's fun, but that's not the real advantage of being successful. The real advantage is the freedom that it buys. So I think in the last few years my life has been getting simpler. I've been directioning it in a very simpler, a more simple way, trying to streamline my lifestyle and my needs so I can keep my focus on important things. You know, my family is important to me, and my work is very important to me. Hi, this is Geddy Lee, as you can see, and wishing Much Music all the very best of luck for the new 24-hour music station.